My name is Jie Gao, and I'm a PhD fellow in the EU-funded UNIKE project. I'm currently studying in Aarhus University Copenhagen campus. And in my research, I studied the cross-border partnership in higher education and research. To be more specific, I study the partnerships between China and other countries that are taking place in mainland China in the form of joint degree programs, joint campus, branch campus, things like that. And in my study, I take Sino-Danish Center of Higher Education and Research in Beijing to be my research subject. I also studied some other similar joint branch campuses in China just to have a comparison with the SDC. I studied 6 months in Beijing and in SDC to do my fieldwork, and I also visited some other campuses in China. And in my research, I tried to find answers to 2 questions. The first question is how the imaginary of globalization and knowledge economy are shaping the policies and thus the practices of forming collaborations across countries. And for example, how China imagine the globalization knowledge economy, that it feels that it has to access the worldwide knowledge resources by forming joint campuses or joint programs with other countries. And secondly, how in practice, joint campuses have been mobilized by nation states in seizing favorable positions or competitive positions in this knowledge economy or in globalization. And to answer those questions, I did ethnographic studies of SDC and some other campuses, mainly to try to unpack that moment of struggle and the anxiety of China, when on the one hand it has to open itself to the whole world, to be able to develop quickly, to access a worldwide resources of knowledge and other resources, and on the other hand it has to protect itself in this field of ideology, in which it is not necessarily the strong one. And because the dominant discourses or imaginary of globalization is depicting a trend that is overwhelming, that starts from the economic centers in the Western world and spread itself across the globe. It depicts the other part, except the global north or the West, to be quite passive. But in this context of imaginary, China must try to write a different version of globalization, and that's why it is kind of caught up in this gap, in which, to some extent, it submits itself to this imaginary of globalization, while on the other hand, it tries to initiate an alternative vision of globalization and knowledge economy. And it is to unpack this moment of schizophrenia or moment of struggle that my thesis find its starting point. And in my study, I'm also trying to take a critical view of this hegemonic discourse of globalization. What my study tries to show is that, as you can see in mainland China and even in many other parts of the world, globalization is not this one-way street. The local partners have their own vision of the world, and they try their best to integrate their own way of doing things into this process. And that is also why I find it quite relevant, because only by enable all those different alternatives, visions of globalization, can we have a more equal and open collaboration. Thank you.